Greetings from Siberia. The last several videos that I've done have all been about the garden. The main reason for this, from my perspective at least, is that it's springtime. And that's what we do on the farm in the springtime, or at least one of the main many things that we do on the farm in the springtime is put in the vegetable garden. In future videos, I'll show you exactly how much space the garden takes and how many people we feed from that size of a garden, just so that we can have an idea of what feeding your family from the garden looks like. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about the theory of food independence and how to get to food independence really fast. Most people, when they first start thinking about food security, when for whatever reason in this current environment, probably it was the global pandemic, the COVID situation, you start thinking about, it would probably be a good idea if I could produce my own food. It'd probably be a good idea if a significant percentage of my calories that I eat at home would come from my own ability to produce them. Most people right away, knee-jerk reaction, start thinking about a garden. And it's great. I would never not want to have a garden. But what most people don't realize is that as far as return on investment goes, as far as putting your time in and getting calories back, as far as producing your own food and becoming food independent, or at least having some more food security in your life, a large portion of food security, the garden is probably the last place that you should start. Here's why. For the most part, the average American household spends about 7% of their annual income on food. In Russia, it's significantly more, but nonetheless, in America, it's about 7%. What this means is that even if you were able to get to 100% food independence, raise every single calorie that you consume in your backyard, you would really actually only save, as far as money goes, about 7%. And I know, it's not all about money and it's not all about calories. As we all understand, the food that you raise in the backyard is a lot better quality than the food that you can get at the supermarket, just across the board. So it's kind of comparing apples to oranges, but still, just for a frame of reference, if you think about the money you spend and the calories you get back, it's not that big of a saving. Sure, it does save money, and we'll talk about that more later. But the main thing is your time investment. So when you start thinking about growing your own food, you have to think about the time, the resource of time and attention that you're going to invest into producing food. And if you look at it from that perspective, time invested to calories produced, and especially if you look at it as time invested to calories as a percentage of your total calories consumed produced, then you'll see that really the garden has a pretty bad return on investment. You'll spend about 50 to 60% of your time. If you were to grow 100% of your food, you'll spend about 50 to 60% of your time in the garden and only produce about 10% of the calories that you consume. The place where you want to look is, where can I spend 10 to 20% of my time and produce 50 to 60% of my calories? And that place is in animal husbandry. You can get to 50, 60% food independence relatively quickly. I'm talking about within a few months, if you go the route of raising animals instead of raising vegetables. And here, I'm not saying that you should not have a garden. Like I said right at the beginning of here, a garden is a wonderful thing. But if your main focus is raising food, really consider that animal husbandry, raising animals, is the way to go, because they will give you a far greater return on investment as far as the time spent to the calories produced. Again, we grow all of our own potatoes. We grow our own tomatoes. We grow our own cucumbers. We eat our own salads, our own carrots, our own beets. We have a very large garden. I don't know if you saw the videos before, but literally, we have like 20 foot long by 4 foot wide raised beds, 5 mini greenhouses, 2,750 square feet of a potato patch, 2,750 square feet dedicated to raised beds and the mini greenhouses. It's a big garden. We get a lot of food out of there. But still, you have to realize that only about 10 to 15% max of our calories come from there. where does the rest of our calories come from? They come from dairy. Having 3 or 4 goats for a family or a milk cow for several families is a fundamental cornerstone of your calorie picture. Achieving quick and really important food independence. The second area is chickens. Like, really. Egg-laying chickens are just an absolute amazing thing. Very little investment, very little labor involved, and they will give you really good calories all year long in the form of eggs. The third area that we want to think about is meat production. So 10 sheep or maybe a steer, or having like 30 to 50 chickens, broiler chickens, meat chickens, 3 to 5 times a year to feed your family. So you raise a batch, butcher them, put them in the freezer, raise the next batch, butcher them, put them in the freezer. You're always having more or less fresh chicken, and it's a really, really wonderful way to get yourself onto the track of food independence really, really quick. Now, I know the main problem with raising animals, the main considerations are, first of all, you've got a large capital investment in the beginning because you have to put up some kind of a shed, some kind of a facility, some kind of a barn. Like, I get that. And the second thing, of course, is, well, with a garden, I look after it over the summer months, but in the winter, I'm free. I'm not tied down to it. And with animals, you are tied down. There is that you have to take into consideration. But again, if your goal is food security, if your goal is to have food independence, then you really have to start thinking about it in the area of animal husbandry. Again, 10% of your time, 50 to 60% of the calories that you consume can be produced with just having some milk animals, like either a milk cow or 3 to 5 milk goats. That's more than enough for your entire family's needs of pretty much all milk products. Eggs from chickens will completely take care of that whole portion and give you a really good high quality calorie right there. And then a meat product like sheep or a cow or a steer, you know. I really don't think that pigs are a good idea, largely because if you have 10, 15, 30 laying hens and another 20, 30, 40 meat chickens, then they're going to eat all the table scraps that your family can provide. I mean, seriously, you will not have anything left over for the poor pig. And then you'll end up having to buy all kinds of feed for the pig, and so you'll just get into this kind of this real serious feedback loop problem where you're putting in way more money than you're getting out of it as far as food. So sheep or chickens, again, broiler chickens for meat, chickens for eggs, and something for dairy really, really, really can get you to 50, 60% so fast. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, but I just wanted to put that in there so that you don't start thinking like, well, the garden's the answer. And it is the answer to a degree. I mean, it is part of the picture. And I wouldn't want you guys to be without a garden, but if I had to choose, as far as food security goes, between the garden and animal husbandry, I of course would choose animal husbandry first. Another reason for that is because animals work together with the garden to make the garden what it is. Our garden wouldn't be anywhere where it was if we didn't have animal husbandry, because all of our compost, all that bedding, all the kind of waste that comes from the animals goes back into the garden. It gets composted and recycled into the garden. It builds the soil, and that allows us to get what we get out of our garden. So I really, really want to encourage y'all to think towards the direction of animal husbandry if you're serious about producing your own calories. I've seen a lot of bloggers, people on the internet, people back to earthers, quote unquote, who talk about food independence. And you kind of look at their setup and you realize, these people are just talking about it. They're nowhere even near it. And the main reason is because, again, they have a big garden. Even if they have a big garden, a nice garden, sure, a lot of them don't even have that. A lot of them have pretty small gardens. They're only raising 10%, 5%, 6% of their calories. Everything else is coming from the grocery store. And if you really want to get to that place of food independence, and you can really quickly, think about animal husbandry. Well, just as one might say, you have to spend time on animals, you're kind of tied down, and you don't forget, you can't raise all the feed on your own farm for your animals. You have to buy inputs. So it's not really that independent. And we'll talk about that, I think, in a future video, about how that looks and how you can make that work for you pretty easily and not increase the cost of your food, but actually, again, animal husbandry is one of the ways of making the farm pay for itself and getting not only food independence as far as producing your own food, but food independence as far as not having to pay hardly anything for your food. But we'll talk about that in the future. But for now, that's what I want to leave you with. Absolutely garden, absolutely compost everything, absolutely grow those veggies. That's wonderful sources of vitamins, wonderful sources of nutrients. Of course, that's important. But the real way to get to food independence fast is to think about milk, to think about eggs, and to think about meat on your property. And almost anyone with a decently sized backyard can do that pretty simply. So I hope that helps. And until next time, as I always say on my Russian YouTube channel, the earth is the Lord's, coffee's beeping, I gotta run.